Welcome, everybody, to Book Notes. We thank you for joining us this evening. We are excited because we have an incredible guest with us tonight, none other than Brother Charlie Lewis. We thank all of you who are from different parts of the country. I see that we have Cincinnati, we have New York, we have Greenville, we have, of course, Chicago, and an entire crew of people who've graduated from Howard University. We're grateful that you are with us this evening for this conversation that we have with our author, none other than Charlie Lewis. But as we start our book notes, we always begin in prayer. And so let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious and most merciful God, may we live with no apologies. And may we love the life that we live at any age. May we receive the stories that you have placed within the heart of Brother Lewis, and may they be a blessing to those who are listening this evening. We thank you and we give you praise. And the people of God who love God may say, Amen. Tonight, our author is none other than Brother Charlie Lewis. His book is No Apologies, Love the Way You Live at Any Age. Brother Lewis is one of the nation's best when it comes to real estate agents, the Compass Agency. He's one of the top 4 lifestyle real estate agents in Chicago, but in New York. But more than that, Brother Lewis is a connector. He is a storyteller. I like to say he is a griot. Our families have crisscrossed and connected for quite some time since the 90s. We'll share a little bit about that at some point during our conversation. But I'm telling you, you will be blessed by this book. It captures his voice. It shares incredible wisdom, and it takes you on a journey by laying out principles for those who are looking to reinvent, restart, reboot, and reassess their life. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation tonight with none other than Charlie Lewis.
Good evening. Good evening.
Charlie, man, it is great to see you. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for writing No Apologies. It, as I stated already, you did a tremendous job, and it really captures your voice and spirit. So thank you. And we have an incredible group of people. I think you got an amazing village, because there are quite a few people who are joining us this evening. And I would love to begin really when you're in your book, you talk about legacy.
Yes.
And your foundation in Statesboro, Georgia. If you could share with us just some of the wisdom and stories of your development in Statesboro and how it laid a foundation for you today.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to the audience out there worldwide. And thank you, Reverend Moss, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Statesboro, Georgia was, as they always say, a small town, great to grow up in, but I knew I was on a mission out of there. But I had a great father who poured into me every day, every week, over and over. It was 6 of us. I have 5 older sisters. I'm the youngest. My dad, if he was living today, he would be 99 years old. My mom would be 96. She passed away in 20. He passed away in 13. I grew up in my father's businesses. He had 9 different businesses. He had a health food, a convenience store, a carousel drive-in, a van line moving company, storage warehouses, rental properties, an auto body shop, a barber shop, a used car lot. I feel like I'm missing something, and a health food store. So he was a Renaissance man before his time. He had a 6th grade degree. He was one of 21 kids. His father passed away when he was 17 and told him that he was the man in charge of the house. And
Mm.
so I heard that story on repeat, and then I saw it as I grew, and then I saw it as I was getting ready to matriculate to Howard University. And so for that, what I would say is that I knew Statesboro was a great place to be and grow up because you could walk anywhere and everywhere. You know, you didn't have to worry about protecting your kids, if anybody was going to kidnap your kids or anything like that. So when I played sports, you know, I could walk home from the rec center or anything like that. He had that corner store in the Black neighborhood, which is now Martin Luther King Drive, and everybody came there, and he held church right there. You know, he was the lay leader in the church, the trustee. He was the guy who started the building fund at the church. He was just a man about town. And then my mom, because my mom was very instrumental and very progressive, and I didn't know that
Mm.
at the time. And I don't want to fast forward the story yet, but I didn't know that at the time of how progressive my mom was for her era and how she raised us. My mom was, you know, just a genuine, loving woman. I grew up in the business with them, you know, and I
Mm.
became, since I was the last one, by the time I got to high school, they were tired. So they kind of let me do what I wanted to do. But being that they were 40 years older than me, I felt the need that I needed to grow up quick. And so I was always trying to learn what I needed to do, because what to do in life, because I didn't want to be, quote unquote, an orphan or, you know, not have a mother and father. And I remember telling my mom that story one day, and she was like, "You were going through all of that?" And I was just like, "Well, you know, you guys are older than I am. I didn't know, you know, everybody else moms was like 20 years older or 25 years older, but they were 40 years older." And so it really made a difference in the way I saw the world and the way
Mm.
I saw how I needed to grow up. So that was me growing up quick. And then I would go visit my older sister, Leontine, me and Sharma, because we were the ones at home. At the time, we would go visit her during the summer. And that's when I got the bug of, I got to get out of this town, because she was in DC. And when I saw the city, I was like, lights, camera, action, it's time to get out of here. So for me, growing up in Statesboro was the foundation that laid who I am today. Me connecting, me watching my mother and father by standing behind that cash register, looking at how they treated everybody. No matter if you
Mm.
had no money or if you had all the money, how he treated politicians who came to see him. Basically, I call it the kiss the ring, because Charlie Lewis was on the, you know, he was the one that was going to make sure if you need to get in office, he was going to go around town and tell everybody. They used to call him
Mm.
the Black Santa Claus, because during Christmas time, he would go around and talk to people, I mean, and hand out gifts and hand out money to the people in the community. So I learned by watching. I was a very audio and visual person growing up, and that's exactly how I, you know, grew up, and that's how I was raised. And he was a storyteller. He told stories all day long. What he had to do to get to school, what he had to do when he got to school, what he had to do after school, and then how he raised his immediate family when his father passed away, and how he said, "What am I going to do?" And he bought a truck and he took them down to Florida to the orange groves. And that's why I have all my relatives now in Florida. And that's really what started his moving business. That was
Mm.
55. And then he started his moving business after, well, he was a hauler. And then he opened up his store in 1967 when I was born. And then he had the moving business at that time. And so
Wow.
people worked for him, all shades. I mean, you know, you worked for my daddy 2 or 3 times. If you came to work and there were guys that, you know, that lived over in the project, they would come and they would have alcohol in their breath. And he would say, "You got to go. You can't work for me." And then he would go to the projects and get somebody else and bring them on the job. And so that's what I saw. I saw him like
Mm.
anybody, any different than anything. And so that's all I can remember. And so today, as I move through life, I'm all about our community. I'm all about building.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
all about connecting our community together. And if anybody that knows me know that I'm going to our community first, and it's definitely going to be my HU
Yes.
community. or my HBCU community, my brothers and sisters from Morehouse, Spelman, A&T, and all the likes, if I need to do any type of work or any type of connecting kids and stuff like that. So I learned from the best, but I knew his legacy was not mine.
Well,
And
it echoes in you, who you are. So much of your imprint is coming from your parents and your father. And I love that in the book you share your father wanted you to carry the mantle, wanted you to be an imprint of him, to carry on the business. If you would share the conversation that you had when you were making a shift.
Yeah. That's when I realized how progressive my mom was, because I knew I couldn't go back to Statesboro, Georgia. There was just no way. Once I got to Howard and DC just opened me up, at that point in time, there was no way to turn back. But you had that tug of war. You want to do right by your parents. You want to feel good, but I just knew that was not my world. That was not what I wanted to do. And so many of us would have taken that route. But when I left Howard and moved to Ohio and Detroit for 6 months, and then I went to grad school, that first summer when I came home for like a week or so, I was talking, my mom's, when I walked through the back door, she looked at me and she said, "Son, this isn't your life. This is your father's life. You need to go out and live your life. He built this to support and provide for you." And the weight, it just was like I opened up like this, and I could finally breathe, and I could finally think about my life and what I wanted to do. And that's when I think back to it, at that conversation, that was in 1992. I realized, boy, my mom was progressive for that, because a lot of women would have said, "Son, your daddy got this business, you gonna work in your father." They would have tried to force you to go in that way, especially from that era. You got to think about it. These are parents from the silent generation. They were built different, right? And so most people would have followed that footstep and they would have held you through. But she was like, "No, you got a life. Go live your life. Go make your own trajectory. Go make your own mark." And that was the beginning of me trying to find out who I was and really figure out what I wanted to do. And I thank her for that conversation to this day. And so that
I'm so blessed by not just, I'll say it again, I love you. I love the book. But I'm blessed by your family lineage, your mother and your father. I'm familiar with Statesboro.
Okay.
Both of our parents, they come out of segregation. They come out of American apartheid. They come out of domestic terror. And your family created such a space of Black resilience and Black thriving and creativity. And I do have to say this, that in your book, I laughed and I said, "Oh, he had to throw a little shade here," when you're talking about the schools that you were looking at. You're looking at Howard, Hampton, and Morehouse. And it said you went to Atlanta and you saw that the buildings were run down. And you said you would only be a couple of hours from Statesboro, and that would not be the space that you wanted to be. You want to be free in terms of, but Howard University becomes, tell us that, because I think that's the next shift. If your life was a school, it's Statesboro, and then that transition to Howard, it's a legacy, then affirmation.
Yes.
And so when you move to the section about Howard, tell us about the Howard years and why Howard was transformative for you being you.
Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I was always in the class with all the smart kids, all in the AP class. So I always used to say to myself, where are all the other smart Black kids? I wanted to know where they were. And for me, I was just like, there has to be a a place. Where are they? And I remember going up the year before I got there, and my sister Leontine, she brought me on the yard, and I walked through those gates, and it was like April day, sunny, 84 degrees, the clouds just, and I walked out on that yard, and to see all that blackness, and back then things were regional. Remember, in the 80s, you knew people who were from New York because the girls, the way they dressed, their haircut, DC girl, it was, you knew, and that was the first time that I saw that. And I was like, wow, Black people are not monolithic. And what I realized to this day, I mean, a lot of people, what I realized, a lot of Black people don't get that experience. They don't get that exposure to know that we come in all shapes and colors. And so they are limited based off of their neighborhood. Some people don't leave their neighborhood. Some people, very few, leave the block, in some of the bigger cities, and some people just don't have the wherewithal to travel. So for me to walk through those gates and to see that, and then to go in a classroom and to sit in a classroom with nothing but Black people, I was just like, this is it. I didn't even make it to Hampton. I was like, forget that. I knew I was in DC anyway, and I knew I wanted to be in the city. I was like, this is where I'm going to be. So it really was a blessing in that I was able to have that experience. And when I walked back in the door, when I went home, my mom was like, "You going to Howard, ain't you?" And she could see it. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to Howard." So when I got to Howard, I just remember freshman year sitting in Drew and having conversations with my guy friend Eric Chenault from Atlanta, and guys from Detroit and Chicago and LA, and just storytelling, just everybody sitting up talking about what they did in high school, how they did everything. And just to realize that you were the same individual going through the same thing, but just in a different environment. And we finally got together. So it was time now to then readjust and recalibrate and see, okay, because everybody was the homecoming king, queen, class president, student council president, honors class this, honors class that. So when you're amongst that Black brilliance, now you got to break out from the crowd.
Right.
So how do you show up? How do you show up different? What do you bring to the table? And so to do all of that and to be in a nurturing environment, that's why I go so hard right now for HBCUs, because you have that. You're in an environment where you might have come out of white private schools. You might have been the only one. And now you're there amongst your peers. And now you're competing, but it's not a competition. It's really that you are just learning together. So you're growing together. And now you look fast forward 41 years later, you look back and say, I can't even believe it's been 41 years when I walked on campus. And now to have your friends and your network that is so deep and so wide, because we're in so many different places and spaces. And until this day, when you branch out and go to other schools or universities or grad school, there's always somebody from Howard that's in the building. And you know that. And it just warms my heart. So I do everything. Howard gave so much to me. I was involved with UGSA, the Undergraduate Student Association. I was the business manager for the yearbook. I was on, future business leader fraternities at Delta Sigma Pi and all of those things at Howard. And it just built who I was. Being in DC was another opportunity because my sisters were there, Teen was there, Vita was there, Shama was there at the time. And so we all were in DC together. And so it was almost like a little family affair. And that first semester, they had to yank me up because I was partying a little too much and my grades were slipping. And Rita called me over. She was like, "You want to go back to Statesboro, Georgia?" And I was like, "No." She said, "Well, you better get it together." And I got it together, and the rest was history. But it was just the connection, and it was just the building upon each other in DC that was really rewarding for me. And it would never, I don't see myself go. And I didn't want to go to school in a college town per se. I wanted to go to school in an urban area because I was from Statesboro. And I had already really had that experience by going out to Georgia Southern, which was a college in Statesboro, and having that experience. And I knew that was not enough for me. So I knew I wanted to.
Now, for every person who is at an HBCU who has deep love for their institution,
Mhm.
there is always a professor, an administrator, or just someone on the staff
Yeah.
who ends up being someone who pours into you in a unique way. Who were the individuals at Howard who were able to see you?
Dr. John Williams, who was at Morehouse, he
Mhm.
taught finance, and those short. He was like the speed racer. He used to run around on that chalkboard and you know, and and he was just so intentional about you understanding what you needed to know in the foundation. Um, Him and Mrs. Works in the administration building. Um,
Mm.
she was like that mother who took all of us under her wing and we could go to for any problems or any situations that we have. Her daughters, Karen and Sharon, they were my good friends growing up. I mean, going through Howard. And I love the fact, I was like, I love you sharing your mother with us. And she was
Mhm.
a mother to a lot of people. So when anything went wrong or anything didn't go right, if your financial aid or whatever the case may be, I knew I could go see Ms. Works and she was going to work it out for me. But Dr. Williams had the most impact because he really nurtured us in the sense of we got so competitive in his classroom, we took it to the basketball court and
Really?
groups segmented in the classroom where we had a tournament against each other in the classroom. That's how competitive he made it. And
Mm.
so it was interesting. And then there was another another professor, and it's slipping my mind right now, but he taught the class corporate. Basically, it was called corporate culture, and we just renamed it "How Not to Get Fired in Corporate America." um, and he gave different scenarios because he was on. It was an elective, and he came from IBM, and
Mm.
he came to talk to class, and he would tell us really stories about what you would encounter in corporate America and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So what
Mhm.
moves you should make. So it's like when you graduate and when you go into corporate America, you need to make sure that you have a 30-day meeting
Mhm.
with your manager. And if you do that, at the end of the year, it would not be a review. It'll just be a catch up because when you meet every 30 days, you know exactly where you stand. And I did that, and my review was great. But the next year, I said, well, I got this now. I don't need to do that anymore. And I went from, if it was a grading scale, from an A to a D in the
Mhm.
second year. But I knew what they were trying to do. They were really trying to build a file on me and to, really mark up my record so I would not advance. But I knew I had a goal anyway, and that was to go to school, work there for 2 years and then get my MBA. So I went through that whole turmoil because I was in Findlay, Ohio, where I was only
Yes. I know
four,
Fenton.
yeah,
Yeah.
four blacks out of 2,400.
And you were in Toledo, you were
Mhm.
working at it's Marathon Oil, correct?
Marathon Oil Company, yeah.
Marathon Oil in Finland, and then that was another major shift of your period of purgatory, before before you make your way to the University of Texas, but that period was important for you.
It
And what you
was it was in a number of ways.
Mhm,
That was you know, I talk about environmental wellness in my book um,
mhm,
because it's about the environment that you're in that's not feeding you.
mhm,
And for me, that company was not feeding me, and that environment was not feeding me. And so I called up my girlfriend, God rest her soul, Monique Purnell, and I asked her, I don't even really remember how the conversation came up. However, I think we were just talking one day and how miserable I was. And she said, well, why don't you move to Detroit? And I said, and do what? She's like, you can live with my mom and dad. And I said, really? She said, yeah. And I went to him and I met him, and well, I knew him, and I went and I talked to him. They said, "Yeah, Charlie, you can stay here." Because I at that time I applied to grad school and I knew I was going, and it
mhm.
was 6 months before I was going. So the last 6 months, I moved to Detroit because I needed the socialization of a church. I needed the socialization of community. I needed a barber. You know, being in a town like Toledo and Findlay, it was not the best thing back then in the
Right.
80s, early 90s. And we had a little group in Toledo, but we always had to tell each other, don't leave town this week, because, you know, we wanted to do an event or something, because people would always leave and go to Chicago or Detroit or Cleveland or wherever. And so for me, Detroit, I always say, was the second part, because at that time, it really showed me a different, seeing life from a different perspective, of a different pair of eyes from parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Monique's mom and dad were younger than my mom and dad. I could go and I could shoot to talk a lot of mess with Mr. Parnell after work, because he lived right on the lodge. If anybody know Detroit, he lived right on the lodge at 7 Mile Road. And I would pull over and I would stop there and I would sit there with him, and we would talk for days. And he reminded me of my father, but it just hit different because it wasn't your father, right?
Yeah, he poured you a drink, and then you all would
pour me a drink of Crown Royal, and we would, Charlie, let me pull out this purple bottle, and he would sit it there, and we would just talk, and he would tell me stories about Howard, because he went to Howard in the 60s, 70s, in the 60s, and he was on Omega, and he would just tell us about what was going on then. So I love that and the storytelling. So it reminded me of my father and stuff of that nature.
Now, what I love that you do in the book, and you keep coming back to points and characters and your time in Detroit, talking about Mr. Parnell and how he was able to give you something, an addition of what your father didn't, because there was a compassion. Not that your father was not compassionate, but he came from the silent generation.
He did, right.
You know, that I don't show my emotions. I'm going to show you how you're supposed to live. I'm going to do for you. I'm going to do for you. Right. And how being in the presence of a gentleman who wanted to just chill out with you.
Yeah. And that's when you saw it was a black man, seeing a black man from that was still older, but just with a different energy that brought, than your father, and who poured into you, accepted you for who you were, and what it was, because they knew I was. That's when I really started to say to myself that I was a gay man, a black gay man, and he respected that, and he did not have a problem with that. And that was like wide opening to me, because I was like, oh my God, he, just to see the love and the compassion that he poured in. And he told me, man, let me tell you about life, brother. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and this is what it is. And it just opened up the floodgates for me and him and my relationship with him. And then Mrs. Parnell, who is like, a mother to me today. He's still living. Mr. Parnell isn't. We just had great times, and they just enjoyed life. And I come from my mom and dad worked, and they worked in the business together. And they were together for 65 years. They were married for 65 years before my father passed. And to see that, and then to see them who were married all this time too. But, just to see, like you say, they were from the baby boomer generation. They wanted to have a little bit more fun. They worked hard, but still they partied too. And they were part of the boule and all the things, And so to see that, and to see that from a city perspective, not from the small town perspective, it also opened that up. So it was crucial for me. And they just poured love into me. And so then at that point, I could endure those last 6 months in Toledo. In Finland.
And then from there, you make the shift to Austin, to University of Texas. And again, it's another brick. And what the beauty of the book is that we are witnessing all of the different points of your village, and how different people begin to add to your development. But what I also love is at the end of each chapter, you raise questions for the reader.
Right.
In terms of, how are you to live? How are you resetting? How are you reinventing? Are you being held by a particular frame? And University of Texas, Austin helps you expand in many ways, and
Mhm.
share with us how that city, Austin, and how that time University of Texas. Also, shout out Gia Rodriguez is watching right now. Monica Moss is watching right now. They already put up there that she was giving a shout out. You have to have a plan, and so you have an amazing village of people who have joined in to listen tonight.
Yeah, what I'd say about Austin, Austin was that town, the liberal town in Texas.
Hmm.
It gives you the ability to go there. So grad school was one of those things. When I got there, I was just like, okay, where's my tribe? And I immediately got into the auditorium. It was 500 people in the class. There were 25 blacks, 25 Hispanics, 450 whites.
Mm.
So then that's when I knew. I was just like, hat down, let's get this done and let's get out of here. Austin was a lovely town, great town to go to college. It was I worked in the admissions office, so I saw how people got in using their legacy
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
of money.
Yes, yes. Say it. Yeah.
Legacy because of money, not
Hmm.
the affirmative action, but nepotism. So
Hmm.
that's when I saw that. And then I would go to business law class and then we would argue about affirmative action. And I was like, well, I just saw your dad write a check for $30,000
Right.
to get you here. So what are we doing? And then that was also the time in 1993 when Texas had the lawsuit, when the young lady
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yes,
did the
that's right. That's 90. Yes.
did the lawsuit for reverse discrimination because she was
Hmm.
so all of that was going on at the time. But there was a friend down there, that my friend Patrick, and he was living his life. He was living his life in his truth.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was comfortable. I was out, but I wasn't. I still
Hmm.
had one foot in the door, one foot out. And I still was trying to figure this thing out called life because, coming out at that time, it was taboo.
Hmm.
And so I was just managing, trying to manage the situation, not understanding what was going on. But my friend Patrick was, and he was out, and I was just looking at him in amazement, like, look at this brother. He's just living his truth. And I said, I want to get to there one day, but I knew I had some work to do before I got there.
Hmm.
And I knew for me that I was not going to be happy until I could unwind and get to that point. And a lot was happening back at that time. I was losing friends.
Mm.
AIDS epidemic at that time.
Yes.
And so my friend had called me up and was telling me that, this person had passed away, that person had passed away. And, it was really a scary time, to be honest.
Hmm.
And I really didn't know what was going to happen next. But anyway, I was through Texas. I went there. That's when I found out really what I wanted to do, which was sports. I stayed an extra semester, and that's actually how I met Gia, because they came in '93.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had left, they wouldn't have been there. They would have been gone, and I would have been sitting there like that. And so for me, I was just like, who are these women? Her and Lana and their crew. And that is so funny. They came in '93, and I hang
Mhm.
out with them more than anybody else because they were like really fun, energy. We just clicked. Gia went
And
to
for
school.
for those listening, when you hear these names, this is all a part of our, Charlie and I, we're part of the same village.
Yeah,
Gia Rodriguez is Monica's sister, and they were in school together at Spelman. They're still besties to this day. And then Charlie connects, and I connect with Charlie's sister because we were in ministry, growing up in ministry at the same time. So it's just we're all connected in this village.
yeah. And that's a great village because we still travel to today and do amazing things all over the country, and I love it. But that's what I'm saying about community. And I
Mhm.
think what we're seeing now is that we have to go back to community, build that community. And that was the reason why I wrote this book, because the
Mm.
book is about getting rid of the trauma and stop people from suffering in silence. you
Yes.
know I used my story to talk, and I used it using the 8 dimensions of wellness. And the 8 dimensions of wellness is financial, social, emotional, and emotional intellectual, occupational, and environmental, physical, and emotional. I start out the book with emotional wellness and I end with spiritual wellness. And I say to myself, you have to be emotional and you have to be emotionally intelligent to deal with the rest of when you build your life. And if you are messed up in the head, none of the other stuff is going to work. You can go through some of the dimensions and do the work. You could, be in the gym and worry about your health and be physical.
Right.
However, if you're doing that to show off to this person and to that person, that's a different story. But if you're doing it because I want to live and I want to survive and I need to be healthy and I'm doing this for me and I'm not doing this for show, that's a different way of maintaining. So when I was going through everything that I was going through at the time, one day I was sitting up watching Oprah, and that's when I realized, I said, Oprah, my friend Carl Touchstone said to me one day when I came home, he said, "You're angry." And I said, "I am." And he said, "Yeah, you're angry. You need to do something about that." Because we got in a little fight. And at that time, I was like, okay, so, we didn't have social media, but we had Oprah Winfrey. And with Oprah Winfrey, she basically said, "Hey, Charlie, she said, she had Deepak Chopra on, and he had Deepak Chopra on. Deepak was the one who started talking about, living a holistic life. And I was like, that's it. And I went to the bookstore, read his book, and that's when I started the journey of starting to heal myself because of my friend telling me that this is what I was doing. But when you're suffering in silence, when you're hiding, when you have friends that you are losing and you can't be your authentic self, it was eating at me, And so I knew I had to change or I was going to blow a gasket. And that's when I began the journey.
When was the moment? Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Yeah, that was between when I was in Texas and coming back and forth between Texas and Atlanta. And we had that run in at that time. And so that's when I started that journey. And then when I left Texas and I came to Atlanta for a month, then I went to Boston for a year, came back. That's when I really started to really unwind and start to figure out, if I'm going to be a whole person, I got to start this journey. And that's what set out. That's when I set out to do it.
You use the phrase in your book, the idea of decluttering, borrowing from, I'm trying to remember the person's name, borrowing from another person, that when you declutter, there's a shift that takes place. And you talk about this decluttering during this New York period. And as you are moving into a new phrase, so we've got you going from Detroit, from Findlay, Toledo, we have Texas, we have Boston, and you were warned about Boston, going to Boston in reference to how they treat Black people in Boston, and then landing in New York, where there is another shift in your life. On several levels, to the business level, that there were some major shifts that took place. And I love the story that you share when you are in New York, when you were essentially consulting, you're looking for clients, and there's a shift that takes place as a result of getting this one client that makes a shift for you.
Right. That's when I pivoted from having my business and then shifting into going into my own business. And you know what, Reverend? I just realized my computer, I'm going to slide over. Sorry, we're doing this, but I need to plug in.
There's no problem.
Your world. Thank you. So what I realized at the time was I was in New York and I had started working for Marvel Entertainment. And when I was with Marvel Entertainment, I was there for a year, and then I moved over to Digitas. I worked at Agency World for 5 years. And then that's when I made my transition to start my own business. And
Mhm.
I realized at the time when my father had always told me, you going into corporate America, but you need to really work for yourself, Charlie, because you're
Mm.
smart for that and you're going to run up against opposition. And he was right. And that's when I knew I needed to pivot. And on September 11th, I went into business. I signed a lease that morning to go
Mm.
business for myself starting in that January. And that's when I made a transition to go into start my own marketing firm. I did that for 3 years. And then I realized this wasn't working because people were stealing my ideas and my concepts.
Mm.
I was like, how am I going to take this life into my own hands? And Cushman and Wakefield was my client. And at that point in time, I said, I got to take this for myself. And this is an opportunity. I want to get into real estate. And we were renaming the Toy Center in New York, but then we were renaming the Toy Center, but we lost the account because they sold the building doing our
Mm.
marketing analysis. And so we lost the second phase and the third phase of the project. And we had to really get into
Mhm.
what we were going to do. And at that point in time, I was tired of trying to get business and work the business because it's hard. When you work for yourself, you're the business development, you're the accountant, the lawyer, the project manager, any entrepreneur out there knows you're doing it all. But for me, that's what I knew I needed to keep moving. And real estate was something that I did. And that's when I got into real estate in '05. And I haven't looked back since then.
Mm, well, I want to break right here and just tell everyone that you have to get a copy
Yes.
of Charlie Lewis's No Apologies. Love the way you live at any age. And guess what? We're going to have a digital raffle so that someone can receive a copy of No Apologies, a book giveaway. So type hashtag book notes to enter. Hashtag book notes. Now, all of you who are online right now who don't
Yeah.
have the book, by the way, don't do it. You in Charlie's Village, you know Charlie, and you already got a copy. You're trying to get 2 copies. Don't do that. For those of you who do not have a copy, we want you to put in their hashtag book notes. At the end of this, we will share who the winner is. We now want to open up. There have been some people, they have been asking some questions throughout the evening. We have one question that I saw. Thank you, Linnell. How do you get to the point in your life where you can love the way you live at any age? Right now, I'm full-time caregiver. We are praying with you for my 85-year-old mom, and it's pretty difficult at times, but I'm thankful that she is still here. Steps are a little slower, memory wanes at times, but how do you do this?
Yeah. This is something that we don't talk about, and nobody talked to us about it. And it was elder care. I'm fortunate enough that I had 5 sisters, and my oldest sister, Leontine, was retired when my dad developed lung cancer, and
Mm.
my mom wasn't sick for but a good year, but my father, he was ailing, and my mom was taking care of him along with my sister. So I understand being a caregiver, what that means. If you got siblings, can you
Mhm.
depend on those siblings? You know, everybody is not meant and not built the same. Some people can't.
Mm.
I'm a
Yeah.
person, I can't see you in an altered state than what I know you as. Because I'm too emotional. I will just
Mm.
cry on the spot. I'm a mushy person. I can't do it. I'm just not that person. I'm telling you, I am not that person. I know how I'm built, but I can help any other ways that you want me to help out. And if you have siblings, everybody has to have a role. Some people can have the financial aspect to it and help out. Some people can sit there and deal with that because they have the time. Others don't. Okay. But what you need to do is you need to make sure that you have someone in that city or state that you live in that gives you the ability to give you 2, 3, 4 hours a day so you can walk away from the environment, because sometimes the caregiver goes before the person who they're taking care of. And we've seen that happen.
Mhm.
So the bottom line is you want to make sure that you give yourself the ability to go to get yourself a massage,
Mm.
relax, just go to a coffee house, sit up, have you a cup of coffee, or just go have yourself a nice lunch before you come back into that environment, because you do have to separate that, especially if your parents are dealing with dementia and things of that nature, because
Mhm.
that's harder. Because sometimes, dementia, they get mean, they get aggravated, and
Mhm.
they come at you totally different. And if you really don't know the diagnosis, and if you really haven't read up on the disease, you really don't know how to care for them. So you have to think about whatever it is. And I don't know what that person's family situation is, but try to find someone that can share the load with you, that can help you out. So then therefore you can take care of your 85-year-old mother, and you feel like you're giving them the respect that they deserve. And so you will feel like you are doing what you could do. And if that doesn't work out for you, and if you can afford to bring in care, then do that as well to give you that relief, because
Mhm.
it really will aid you.
Here's a question that I wanted to also, and please contribute your questions right now. That Brother Lewis is waiting to answer your questions. But what would you say to someone who is seeking to live their authenticity? Your story is a story of being authentically Charlie Lewis.
Yeah.
What would you share with a person who's like, I want to be authentically who I am?
Well, you got to come out of the closet.
Mm,
And what closet is that? I say everybody's in a closet. The closet
mm,
of I got married because my mom and daddy wanted me to get married. I had
mm,
kids because my mom and dad wanted me to have kids. I'm on this job only because of the money, and I don't really have love for it.
mm,
I'm living in a space that's not giving me any joy, and I'm not
mm,
bringing any joy. So we're doing certain things because we think we have to. Number
mhm,
one, we were told we had to. We followed societal pressures to put us in situations, and now once you get in that situation, you realize this ain't what I want. This is not what I want to do. So then you have to unravel that. And so,
mhm.
how do you unravel that? You got to have honest communication. You have to have
Yes.
that courageous conversation with yourself to say what it is that you want to do and how do you want to live out the rest of your life. What I realized was that as being a realtor and being a realtor for 21 years, people were coming to me with all their stories and I'm telling me everything and all their business because they just do. And I realized how many people are out here suffering in silence. And
Mm,
what does that do? That become health problems because the stress of trying to keep up with the Joneses and doing the things. Stop. I always say stop. Stop, take an assessment of your life. Number one, you got to figure out what it is that you want to do for the rest of you. I always say, you're gonna live 50 years. Those are 50 years. Now you have all the wisdom. You can share that wisdom, but the rest of your life, you should be living your best life. You should have the means to live your best life. You should be wanting to live your best life because now you don't have the experiences. You don't went through the trials and tribulations. And if you haven't taken the time to self-reflect and think about what it is that you want to do and live really with audacity and the confidence that you should be living. Can you
mm,
imagine if all of us stop pretending and live the life that we
mm,
really want to live? How
mm,
creative our community, how our minds would be able to develop. But a lot of us are still suffering from post-trauma
mm,
from our past. And it's been poured down generation after generation, and nobody wants to get off of that loop. And
mm,
that's why I said for me, when I had that conversation with my mom, when my mom had that conversation with me, and she said, "Hey, this ain't your life. This life that your dad built, this ain't your life. He built it for him to provide for you. You go do you." And so I
mhm,
say to everybody out there, go do you. Now, you say, "Well, Charlie, I'm married. I can't do me." I'm in this situation. Um, this is when you are married, but that's why y'all should be having courageous conversations with your
mhm,
husband. What is it that you want to do? That's the ability of being in a relationship, right? You might want to go out and be that entrepreneur. You might want to go out and live your passion, and you might want to say, you know what? I suppressed all of this because what did our parents do to us? They told us You got to go out and get a business degree. You can't go be an artist. You can't go do music. You can't go be no actor. You don't pay no money. And so what did we do? We suppressed all of that creative energy and some of the things that we wanted to do to appease them. And then you get 30, 40, 50 years old saying, oh my God. So I have one good story. And my I love her to death. Priscilla Pfeiffer in Detroit. She is an artist. She started 10 years ago at 70. She is now 80 years old, and she is one of the top artists in Detroit, Michigan, because she did the thing that she wanted to do at 70 years old. So it's never too late. You can always start. You just got to step out on faith. And what they say, faith of a what? Mustard seed. That's what you have to have. And to do that. And so once you do that, it just opens up. And then I always say, lean into your passions. It will give you your purpose.
Lean into your passions. It will get you to your purpose. I love that. We have a question. Someone here has a question in reference. Could you talk about the role of mentoring the next generations?
Yeah. So for me, everybody know I'm Uncle Charlie, better known as Uncle Charlie. I help out all the Bisons to get into Howard. And I feel that it's important because I don't feel like we're having conversations with kids anymore. We're letting the schools raise them. And they're not doing the job because we're putting them in private schools. And when you put them in private schools, they don't care about your kid. They only care about your money, you know, but they're not nurturing your kid. They're not telling your kid history. You see, they're pulling all the history books out. And so now you got a whole generation of kids out here don't even understand, like, what is Donald Trump doing? I don't understand. Why are we not rolling back the voting rights? Like, why are we doing this? And it's because we were afraid to tell our kids the truth. Like, we wanted to show up and say, look at the world. Isn't it rosy? We got the house. We got the car. You at the good school. We're down at the tennis courts. I'm giving you swimming lessons. But you never wanted to tell them what happened to your grandfather and what happened to you, and how you had no money and how you ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how you ate the whatever, a honey bun and a Snicker bar and a cheese sandwich or whatever the case may be to survive. Kids growing up today, they don't even understand because you're not telling them what it was to be resilient. And so now they're sitting here looking, they're fiending for information. They want to be talked to. They need us at this generation to tell us the story. They have all the information on a phone, but they don't have the lived experience. You have the lived experience, and you have to show them through whatever wisdom, whatever kid you might have access. I mean, you know that you are familiar. Might be your niece, might be your nephew, might be some other kids that are growing up around you. I don't know, but I try. For me, it comes down to Howard and trying to mentor to the kids. And then once people graduate, we have built a community in Harlem where we have Sunday dinners, and it's from Howard graduates, Spelman, Morehouse, whatever, kids that we know that are in our circle and that's in New York, and we bring them in and we sit them around the table. And my girlfriend Naja, she cooks a good Jamaican dish, and we sit around and we talk to the kids, and we talk to them about life and what's happening now and what should they be looking for, and if they need a connection, they need a job, they need an apartment. Those are the things that we are doing in order to to educate them and to let them know that's what you have to do. That's what we need to do more of. And so build that community, because social media, as good as it is to connect us, it's not doing the job of really laying in and pouring into our kids to give them the fundamentals of what life is all about.
Well, Charlie, I have to say, this has been an absolute delight speaking with you this evening. And again, the book that you want to get right here is No Apologies. And we are having a raffle tonight. And I'm going to ask our Uber producers who are behind the scenes if they will help us out. And we don't have a drum roll or anything of that nature, but if you all can help us out, who wins the raffle tonight? Who is blessed with a book? this evening? Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Ah,
All right, Shirley Jolly, you are the winner this evening of the raffle. And we congratulate you. We know that you will be blessed by the book, No Apologies by Charlie Lewis. And we're thankful that you are joining with us on this evening. Brother Lewis, it is always a delight to be in your presence. I'm so glad that we are connected to the same village. And thank you for the work that you are doing. I want to say thank you to all of those who joined us this evening. Go ahead and give a shout out to Brother Lewis for the great job that he did. All of you on Facebook, those of you who are on YouTube, and if you are watching this a little bit later, this will continue to be on social media. Please forward it to someone else and let them know about Brother Lewis's book and about our book notes. Just a very quick announcement. We will have our film notes on Sunday at 1:30. We will be screening the film W.E.B. Du Bois, A Rebel with a Cause. And we will be speaking with the filmmaker on Sunday. And we're looking forward to that. If you have not seen the film, you can check it out on YouTube. It is a PBS documentary. It's stellar. You want to. But Brother Lewis, thank you for joining us. And to our producers, all those behind the scenes, from Reverend Sue to our social media specialist, Erica, to Minister Donna, we appreciate the entire team for book notes. And we are grateful that you have joined us tonight for book notes. We'll see you on Sunday for film notes. God bless.